Hey guys, Dr. Michael Young here. Hope everything's going well in your world. We are pushing ahead with our next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to go over chapter 14. We're going to talk a little bit about organizational structure. Organizational structure, and particularly at international businesses. So, sit back, take notes. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you on the other side. We have three conditions for good, or what your textbook calls superior, enterprise profitability. First of all, the different elements of architecture must be internally consistent. Think of it this way. Everybody on the boat must be rowing in the same direction, right? If this particular division is going in that way, and this particular division is going that way, it's not going to be an effective organizational architecture. Not going to be profitable. Number two, organization has to fit the strategy. When I teach strategic management, we talk about the idea that if we are going to have a low-cost strategy, for example, our selling point is our price. Well, everybody has to know that and push to make price the selling point. On the other hand, if innovation is our selling point, then everybody has to know that and everybody has to move in that direction. If not, what happens is if you have some people trying to cut costs and other people trying to focus on innovation, then you end up with something in the middle, some sort of a muddle that doesn't work. Last one, strategy has to make sense given the environment, given the situation. So these are the three conditions for superior enterprise profitability: consistency, fit, and makes sense. So here we have figure 14.2 in your textbook. This is showing the organizational architecture. In the middle you have people. The different outposts from this, you have structure. You have incentives and controls. You have processes. You have culture. All of these fit together as part of the organizational architecture. We're going to talk about each of these now one by one. First one, culture. This is the first part of the architecture that we're going to talk about. These are the norms and the values shared by employees. I don't think that it's possible to overemphasize the importance of organizational culture. I think we can all see that, right? We can all see that in what's happening in certain organizations around West Virginia. Some of those organizations that have a good organizational culture do better than those that have a, let's say, non-productive organizational culture or a negative organizational culture. This past week, we got to see Toyota, or actually it was the week before last. We saw Toyota, and they came in and talked about it, and I was very impressed. Yesterday, I happened to go over to the Toyota plant again. It's just right across the road from my recording studio here in beautiful downtown Fridges Bottom, West Virginia, and met with some of the employees again. And, very professional. Everyone is moving in the same direction. Everybody makes such a huge difference to an organization. Next thing we're going to talk about is organizational structure. We've got three dimensions: vertical, horizontal, and integrating. First, vertical. Centralization. There's some good things about having centralization and control, and there's some bad things about having centralization and control. And, in my experience, organizations tend to often miss that mark. I mean, it's difficult to maintain a balance between having centralization and being overly bureaucratic. On the one hand, we know that more centralization and control keeps things under wraps, right? Coordination, integration of operation, helps with consistency, gives top-level managers the means to bring change, and avoids the duplication of activities that occur when similar activities occur out in various subunits. In other words, everybody knows what everybody's doing. On the other hand, as you might have guessed, there is another hand. On the other hand, there are arguments against centralization or arguments for decentralization. Decentralization gives people a little bit more autonomy, permits greater flexibility, can result in better decisions, and can result in increased control. It really depends on the organizational culture. I mean, I've been in part of organizations where people say, oh my gosh, we need more controls around here. Everything is chaos. Why doesn't somebody control people? On the other hand, I've been in organizations where people say, oh my gosh, the bureaucracy is stifling. They want to control everything. I don't have room to breathe. Right? And both are right to a certain extent. Depends on how you're viewing the situation. Good things and bad things to both centralization and decentralization. Next, let's talk about vertical differentiation. Remember, from last class period, we talked about globalization, which is more standardized, localization, which is more localized. We talked about transnational, which tries to do both, and international strategy, which is kind of independent. This is a typical organizational structure. This is for a domestic firm. Each of these are called functional divisions. You've got a purchasing function, a manufacturing function. You've got a marketing function, a finance function, and then you have different parts of that. Within each of those, you have different various little things that they do. And then here's a typical product division type of thing. You got product line A, product line B, product line C. Each one of these product lines, they're not showing A and they're not showing C. They're there, but we can't see them. But each of the product lines, like B here, has a purchasing, manufacturing, marketing, and finance division. This is sometimes called the multi-form. Multi-form, you have sometimes called M-form. You have a different division for each of your products, and each of the products then has its own functional divisions. So that's vertical structure. Horizontal structure tends to be geography, tends to replicate the structure in the home market. And this is the problem with the transnational strategy. It can cause conflict and coordination problems. So here we have an example. Here we've got headquarters. We've got product line A, product line B, C, etc., etc. So this could be product line D or whatever. You got country 1 and country 2. It can cause problems. It can cause confusion. So you got country 1 and country 2. You got general manager A, B, and C. This is sometimes called a matrix structure. I'm going to show it to you in a different form in just a moment. But what this means is that the people working in this division have two bosses. They have both a country boss and a product boss. This is especially rampant. This confusion and double bosses, dual structures comes in especially rampant when companies are trying to follow a transnational strategy where they're trying to have both globalization and local responsiveness. Here's another way of viewing the same thing. This is sometimes called a matrix structure, where you have headquarters, again, each of these, North America, Latin America, Europe, Middle East, Far East. Sorry, I have my window open. Yeah, it's a nice day. It's a beautiful day here, downtown Fraser's Bottom. Somebody's got the motorcycle out for a spin. And you have the product division. You try to combine those two together. This is another way of showing you what I just showed you. Okay, here you have product division A, product division B, product division C, and now you have the different areas with the functional units. Here's another way of showing that. Here you have, this is called a matrix, global matrix structure. Here you have the products, here you have the areas. Let's throw something in there. Let's say Ford. Ford supposedly has a matrix structure. They've said they're trying to follow a transnational strategy. So let's suppose they have their, I don't know, let's say their SUV division. And let's say trucks, and let's say cars, all right? Area 1, this could be North America, USA. Area 2 could be Asia. Area 3 could be Europe, right? So then within each of these intersections is a particular division. So for example, manager here belongs to Division B, Area 2. I believe we said this is Middle East and trucks. And so now this manager has to listen to both the Middle East manager and the truck manager to try to figure out how to run his particular division. Advantages? Hey, he shows some coordination and whatnot. The disadvantages? Imagine being the guy here, this little blue dot, and you've got two bosses and you're trying to satisfy two bosses, which creates a problem. Next thing we're going to talk about is integrating mechanisms. Alright. Different types of integrating mechanisms that we're going to talk about are direct contact, liaison roles, teams, matrix structures. As we're moving from this direction to this direction, we're becoming increasingly complex, and the matrix structure is the most complex of all of the organizational structures in terms of the formal integrating systems, mechanisms. So you want to control your organization. You have some choices here, right? If you want to use personal controls is where you walk around, you meet your employees and say, hey, guys, don't do it this way. Let's do it that way. You're using your personal charisma and influence to try to control the organization. Mostly used in small organizations because it would take a lot of time to do that. As organizations get bigger, you have to have more rules, more red tape. So that people go along, what do we do in this situation? We look at the rule book, here's what we do. And so you can see this has some advantages and this has some advantages. This is particularly, as the organization becomes larger, you have to have more rules and procedures. It's just a fact of life. Another type of control is output control. I don't care how you do it, you just get it done. Work at home, fine. You're on, no contact with me, no rules. But at the end of the day, I expect to see da 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 da. That's a control mechanism. Another one is culture controls. I believe that Toyota uses this somewhat. I'm convinced. I've drank the Kool-Aid. That's how they operate. As part of the Toyota team, that's not how we do things around here. We try to go above and beyond. We could say the West Virginia State University culture, which I believe unfortunately has some problems, if I'm going to be honest. You try to get the employees to buy into the norms and value systems of the firm and control their own behavior. This can reduce the need for other control systems. Think about it. West Virginia State University, if we had a culture where students were actually trying to actually learn as much as they can, then, and not cheat, then that could be a system in which we get students to do the right thing. These control and incentive systems, I think, at least for students, we can talk about it for how we manage student behavior. All right, guys, we are just about done here. Hey, it's me again. Listen, weather is nice. Hope you're out this weekend, getting some of this sunshine and getting some fresh air. We are wrapping this thing up. We have a discussion, which I'm going to post here in just a moment. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, let me know. This is Dr. Michael Young saying, stay awesome.